Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. So this video is going to be part of a series of several videos that I'm going to do over a period of time, all about learning makeup, learning how to do your own makeup, all my tips and tricks on how to create certain looks really simply. I was talking to my girlfriends and they said to me that is what they want to learn and that is what they want to watch because they don't know how to do their own makeup. So I decided to create this makeup look, which is just a simple makeup look for the festive season. You can wear this out clubbing, you could wear it to family events, you could wear it to New Year's Eve. It is just something that's going to be really simple, that looks really glamorous and looks really dramatic and looks like you've tried really hard. I currently have two videos in mind, which is all about the skin and then all about the eyes. If you want to see more videos, please leave me a comment down below of what you'd like to see and what you'd like me to go more in depth with. In this portion of the series, I am going to be focusing completely on eyes, how I recreated this look, and the tips and tricks that I like to take on board when I am doing my eyeshadow. So if you want to learn more, just keep on watching. Alrighty, so for this part of the series, I'm going to work on eyes. What we're going to do is we're going to create that really beautiful classic eye that a lot of people really want to wear to pretty much any event. It's what most of my friends say they want when we go out. They just want something really nice and light and shimmery on the inner corner and the lid, a little bit of depth in the outer corner, and a nice wing. So that is what we're going to really focus on learning today, and I'm just going to show you the easiest way to do it and what I find is the quickest, most simplest way to achieve an eye like that. My first big tip is do your eyes first. I find that if you do your eyes first, if you make a mistake, if anything goes wrong, you're not in too deep and you can just start all over again. In my opinion, for people learning how to do a wing, I find the easiest way is to use a little bit of tape. I've got these tiny little tapes from Kmart. You can use any tape though. I just find these aren't too sticky and they're not too big. So they're the most important factors of the tape that you use, but other than that, use what you like. When you use a bit of tape, you can really map out the shape that you want your completed look to end up. So for me, it really cuts out that middleman of guessing symmetry, of making everything line up and be even. So I find the tape just cuts out a whole lot of guesswork that when you're first learning how to do makeup or when you're a little bit unsure how to really perfect a wing, it makes it so much easier. Alrighty, so as I said, I have nothing on my skin at all. I'm starting completely fresh, and what I always like to do is start with a base on your eyelid. The aim of a primer is to make your makeup last longer. If you have more oily lids, you generally want to go with a primer that has a little bit of oil control and crease control, because the reason your eyeshadow is not working or staying as long as you want it to is because it gets oily. The eye area is already a really damp, really warm, really movable area, so it is going to cause creasing and it is going to cause movement. Every time you blink, you're moving your eyes and they're folding and they're creasing. So if you have oily eyelids, you want to stop the oil from pooling on this part of the lid, because when your eyes are open, that part is sitting together, so the oil is actually dissolving all your makeup. When you close your eyes, you'll end up having a really distinctive line here where your skin is poking through. For everyone else that has more dry to normal eyelids, prepping your eyes or priming your eyes is great just because it cancels out any color and it gives you a really flat base to work with. For me, you can see I have a lot of veining. I have very translucent eyelids because of my eczema and the creams that I do use to treat that. It really does thin the skin around my eyelids and around my under eyes. So for me, I always use a primer just to really cancel out that color so that it doesn't come through on my eyeshadow. You can also think of eyeshadow primers as sort of that first layer of paint. Before you paint a picture, you're gonna have a flat background. If you have a grainy background or a background with color in it already, your picture's never gonna look as crisp or as perfected. You can use products like MAC Prolongwear Paint Pot, or you can use your concealer. I'm gonna use my Prolongwear Concealer by MAC today just as my eyelid primer. This concealer is really great. Like, it is a little bit more expensive, so it's $38 in Australia. But for me, I find with my eyelids the way they are, they don't have a lot of oil, but they do have a little bit of movement because I have quite hooded eyes. I find that this concealer just cancels out what I need to cancel out without my eyelids getting too dry. I'm just pressing that onto my skin with my finger, just really diffusing the edges and building up the color. A lot of you might be wondering how you end up making your foundation and your concealer really stick to the areas that are going to be in the perimeters of the eyeshadow, so out here. I will show you that in the face portion of this series, so if you want to check that out, make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you get a notification when that does come out. So I am just pressing it into my skin. I am going into that inner corner a little bit. We will clean up any areas later, but we just want to make sure that inner corner is quite concealed and quite bright, because a lot of the time people get a lot of darkness there. When you're doing your foundation first, it's easier to conceal in there and remind yourself that it needs to be concealed, but when you're doing your eyes first, you often don't think about it. And once your eyeshadow is on, it is really hard to get a really nice crisp inner corner with eyeshadow already there. So I am just pressing this concealer on. It does sort of self-set. It has a bit of a self-setting motion. However, I am just sort of pressing it until it feels quite dry, because I don't want it to be too sticky or have any creasing. The next thing you want to do is set that. So you can use an eyeshadow if you'd like, or you can use a face powder. I'm just using a little bit of the lightest shade here from the Chi Chi Cosmetics Contour and Highlight Palette. I'm just taking a fluffy brush and I'm just pressing like the tiniest bit of powder on there. You're not really using this powder to increase coverage or to add color. It is simply just to make sure that that concealer isn't sticky. If you leave your concealer unset, it will be sticky when you go in to apply eyeshadows. And when you go to drag that first eyeshadow on, all of the pigment will stick, because it will suck onto that damper area and it won't blend really easily. The next step is applying your tape. So I'm just taking a small amount of tape, about that long, and you want to just take a little bit of the stickiness off. You don't want it to be too sticky. And the idea with the placement of your tape is that you want to outline where you want your wing to be. My biggest tip with deciding how you want your wing to sit is to look straight on at a mirror. So if I'm looking straight on at this camera, you can see that my eye sort of folds over just here. For my wing, if I was to go straight out, it's not going to look very flattering. If I was also to go straight up, it's going to cut straight through that flabby bit of skin and it's not going to look great. So my biggest tip for people is to first visualize where you think your wing will suit you. A lot of people close their eyes and just draw their wing on, and then they open their eyes and it looks completely different to what they think it will look like. So my biggest first tip is to look straight on into a mirror. So if I was looking straight on into my mirror just here, I'm going to just pop the tape so it's sitting under my lower lashes to start with, just so that they don't get stuck in the crossfire. And then I like to just map out the shape that I sort of would like my wing to sit. And the idea about tape is great because you can place it down and then you can always pick it up. So for me, you can sort of see that this would create my wing line going out like that. So it's almost in line with my lower lash line. It's not quite as highly tilted as my lower lash line would be if you would follow that along. But that suits my eye a little bit more, just because you can see like that flappy bit. If we were to follow the exact line of my lower lash line, it would cut straight into that bit of skin, and I personally don't find that super flattering on my eye. So what I've done here is just sort of gone a little bit more out, but I think I want it a little bit more tilted. So I just took off the edge of the tape and sort of pivoted from this baseline up so that I've got a little bit more of an upward slant. You can see now it's a little closer to the lower lash line, which is generally what most makeup artists say to do, is to follow the line of your lower lash line. I personally find that that's way too tilted from my eyes because they're quite narrow, and I like to elongate them a little bit. So I like to go the happy medium between the two, between straight out from your eye and straight up from my lower lash line. Once your first bit of tape is on, you just want to line up the other side. Now this is probably the most tricky bit, but it makes it so much easier in the long run because your tape can be picked up and put back down 100 times without it messing up any of your makeup. I'm pretty happy with how they are sitting and how even they are. So now we're going to go in with eyeshadow. I decided for this tutorial I wanted to use one palette that was quite affordable. I'm using the NYX Avant Pop eyeshadow palette. You've got a lot of nice neutral shades here, and then you've got some pops of color. The shadow quality does make a difference to how easy it is to complete your makeup look. I find if they are too pigmented, it is way too hard to blend, and I find if they're not pigmented enough, you would just get frustrated, and also they won't wear as long throughout the day. I find this one is a great happy medium. It lasts a really long time, but it's also not so pigmented that it's really hard to work with. For this look, I am also using 3 makeup brushes. That's it. That's all I'm using is 3. I've got these 3 brushes here. First, we have a nice flat brush. This one is from BH Cosmetics. It is just a great flat little brush. It is narrower on the sides and then a nice flat dense point. This brush is great for packing on color on the lid, packing on color anywhere else. It is your packing brush. So it is great for placing color. The next eye brush you need is a blender brush. I am using this one here. It is a nice medium-sized blender. It is fluffy and it is soft. This is a Jessup brush off eBay. It was super inexpensive. It may have even come in a kit. I'm not sure now. I use quite a lot of these brushes and I find they're decent. They don't last forever, but they are under $5, so they're very, very, very cheap. The last brush that's a little bit more optional is this. It is the e.l.f. Professional Blending Eye Brush. These you can grab from Kmart for about $3, and this we're just going to use to deepen the color in the crease. And for this look, that is all you need. Brushes are really essential to how your eyeshadow look is going to end up. You can't really create amazing eyeshadow without amazing eyeshadow brushes. That doesn't mean they have to be super expensive, but you have to find ones that work for you, that are a decent quality, and that aren't too soft or too firm. To start off this look, I am going in with this shade here in the palette, which is sort of a peachy nude, and this is going to start as our transition color. What you want to do for your first shade is use a shade that is close to your skin tone. This is going to act as your baseline color, or the color that's going to really help to blend everything else out. For me, I'm going in with this sort of peachy shade. You can also use a nice tan shade, just something that is close to your skin tone but a couple of shades deeper. We're going to take that on our blender brush and I am popping that through my crease. So I'm starting right here where you can see that my crease sort of ends in the outer portion where our tape is, and I'm blending it forward. I'm just pressing my brush into shadows and then I am going to build up the product. So it's all about building this. So I'm just going back and forth really, really slowly to build up that color. With this color and how high you need to take it will really depend on your eye shape and the desired look that you like. I usually like to bring it quite high up onto my brow bone just because I have quite a protruding bit of skin here. So I like to sort of shadow it out and create a little bit more of a smooth canvas. I just diffuse it up all the way to the brow bone. You don't want a super dense amount of color up here because you want to do a brow bone highlight here, but I just like to, as my brush has less product on it, feather it all the way up. And you can build this up as much or as little as you'd like. I'm sort of building up more of the color in the outer portion of the eye, as you can see, and sort of leaving this inner corner not completely bare but a lot smoother. So now you can see the difference. We've just got a little bit more warmth. This eye looks just that little bit more open, and it's just going to make everything easier to blend in the end. When it comes to how far you want to take out your eyeshadow, I usually take mine almost to the end of the tape. So I take it in a swooping motion out to the tape because we are going to blend that section out anyway, but you don't want this whole area to be bare because it will sort of start closing up your eye. If you have no shadow here, your eyes are just going to look very square. So I like to diffuse my shadows out towards the temples just because I find in the end it just looks so much more flattering. The next step is optional, but I'm going to take the lightest shade in the palette here and I'm going to highlight my brow bone using this same brush, and I'm just dusting that through my brow. I like doing this before I've done my brows because you don't have to be precise about it. I'm brushing it quite through my brow and then diffusing the line between that shimmer and the color that we've placed on the eye already. Alrighty, next we're going to create some depth in the outer crease. So I'm going to take the brown shade in the palette. Don't be afraid of these browns because what we're going to do is diffuse it really nicely. So I'm taking the smallest amount on my blender brush and I am just going to place that on where the tape is and just build out from there. So you can see I sort of placed on the tape and just diffused out in little lines. So that's just going to create a really nice depth to that outer corner so that when we do our wing, just accentuates that and just makes it look that little bit more put together. So we're just placing it on the tape and then just back and forth. Like I said, used the tiniest bit of product. My biggest tip for creating really blended eye looks is start small and build up. You can always add more product, but once you've got too much on there, it's really, really hard to take away. With the placement of this, I am taking it from the base of the tape to about halfway up my crease. So I'm going from about there to there, there to there. I'm not going the whole way in, and I am bringing it sort of along the lower lash line as well because I want that outer corner to be nice and smoky and even. So we're sort of going from the edge of the color in your iris out. And again, it's just all about diffusing. So you do want to take your blending brush once there's no product on there and just diffuse it out so that there is no harsh lines. You don't necessarily want to bring dark brown out all the way, but you do want it to blend into the color that we've put as our transition. Now you can build this up as much or as little as you'd like. I'd like to be a little bit deeper than what it is, so I'm just going to start building that product. If you're finding your blending brush is too large, that is when you want to go in with your more tapered blending brush and then use the larger blending brush to blend out the edges. For me at the moment, I'm finding this one's okay, so I'm not going to go into my other one. Alrighty, now that that step's done, I'm just taking a tissue and I'm just cleaning off my brush. You can use a little bit of brush cleaner if you would like, but I'm just removing most of the dark colors so that if we ever use this again to blend out shadows, we're not going to put a big dark stripe on our eye. So now that it's clean, I'm just taking it through that crease again, just dusting away any harsh lines or any harsh edges. We're going to go in with our flat brush now, and we're going to use the same color that we used for our brow bone highlight, which is the lightest shade in the palette. And what I'm going to do is, rather than dipping my brush like I usually would, I'm going to lie it flat and I'm going to press my brush into the eyeshadow, just so that then I get product all on one side of the brush so that I can lie it flat and really apply a lot of pigment. That's why these brushes are more of that flat sort of spoon-like shape, because they're designed to really press shadow on rather than buff shadow through. So I'm pressing that on the inner portion of the eye. So you can see I'm just sort of placing and pressing, placing and pressing. The idea of this technique is just that you're going to get a lot more pigment than you would if you buffed it on. You're going to get a more sort of light wash of color. I'm pressing this on the inner half of the eye and I'm taking it all the way into that crease and all the way into that inner corner. And that is what we should be left with. You don't need to worry too much about how these two blend, because what we are going to do is we're going to take the medium shimmer shade here, which is just a little bit deeper than that first one, and I'm going to take that same brush and just press that on that portion of the eye. What using a deeper shimmery shade is going to do is it's just going to create an even easier blend for you when you go back in with your buffing brush. So I'm just taking that over the top of the shimmer and to meet the deeper color in our crease. Then to blend all that out, I'm taking my buffing brush again and a little bit of the dark brown shadow and just repeating the last step that we did. This is just going to ensure that there's a beautiful gradient from lightest to darkest, and it's not going to look like half and half. Again, taking your buffing brush and just finishing off any blending. Make sure that shimmer is blended out. We don't want harsh lines there either. There's nothing on my brush at the moment, but you could also use a little bit of your transition shade just to buff that out. Alrighty, so next is the step that most people find the scariest, and that is eyeliner. I personally find that eyeliners in a gel pot are so much easier to work with because you can really build on the pigment and you never have to work with a brush that is running out. For me, the pen type liners often run out quite quickly and you end up being stuck trying to do an eyeliner with a product that doesn't work or a product that is running out. And that's when it can become really difficult to do and really frustrating. I am going to show you how to do it with both products. However, I do find gel eyeliner a lot easier, especially if you have a brush that you like. What I like is a nice slanted angle brush, making sure it is the narrowest and thinnest brush you can find. This one is also from BH Cosmetics. It is the number 21 brush. I don't know if that's one that you can buy separately, but it's definitely the one that I have been using the most at the moment. What I like to do is make sure my brush is really covered in product. So I like to go one side to the other. So like that, coating both sides of my brush and making sure that there is a nice tapered point. You want quite a bit of product on your brush because that's going to help it glide a whole lot easier. My first step once my brush is loaded is to draw the outer portion of the wing. So now that our tape is down, it is so much easier. What we want to do is close our eyes and just start bringing it in. So for me, I just start creating the shape that I want. I like to do that first and then go into the lash lines. You can pull your eye tight if you would like. I like to start with little strokes back and forth. So I like to sort of start in a corner and do a tiny little stroke and build it along the lash line. Don't worry too much right now about getting the line really crisp. I just want that there so I can visualize my wing. Now that that's there, you can see where the line that I've created on my wing is sitting and how it looks and how thick it's going to be. Then I like to take my brush and sort of fill that in just a little bit more. And I like to hold it nice and taut and just make sure that the line is filled in along the tape. And you want to also make sure there's a nice tapered point. So you can draw on your tape, which I think is much easier. And all you want to do is make sure that it tapers out to the tip of the tape. That's hard to say. While your tape is on, your biggest focus is to make sure that wing is right. anything on the inner portion of the eye you can do once you remove the tape and even everything out. Again, make sure you're centering your eye, looking straight on at a mirror and having a look at how it's going to sit, because again, that is the most important thing. You can have a really straight liner when your eyes are closed, but it's never going to look very good when your eyes are open. You can see how my wing is thinner at the inner corner and it goes thicker. The thickness of your wing is all up to your eye shape and your personal preference. For me, I generally like my outer corner a little bit thicker so that my eyes look longer. Now, I'm pretty happy with that. I have only dipped my eyeliner brush once, so I haven't gone back into my eyeliner, and I'm pretty happy with that. I am going to clean up that inner corner, but I want to actually pull my eye tight to do that, and I don't want to move the tape around. So I'm going to do that in a second. I'm going to go in with my pen eyeliner. I'm using the Maybelline Master Graphic Liner, mostly because I find it the most comfortable. It has a very similar tip to the eye brush that I just used for my liner, so for me it is the most comfortable, but you can use a smaller brush if you like, and it works just the same. You want to create that outer corner shape first, map out the inner corner and the lash line, and then join them together. Probably the most important tip while you're doing this is just to make sure they are the similar thicknesses and they line up with the shape of your eye. Alrighty, next is the moment of truth where we are going to remove our tape. So I like to take it from the outer corner and just pull forward. And that is what we are left with. So you can still see the outline of the tape on my eye, which is why I like to do it before foundation. But you can see that my wing is nice and crisp, it is nice and even, and it is all done. It is simple and it is quick, and anyone can do it. It makes a really great wing, and once you know how thick you like your liner, it's super easy because you never have to worry about this bit looking nice and sharp. The tape does all the work for you. Now, as you are looking at my eyes now, you can see that this one is quite a bit shorter and quite a bit thinner. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop my tape back on, and you want to place it as close as you can to where it was before. Definitely easy to do, and just make sure it's nice and stuck down. If it's not sticky enough, get a new bit of tape because you don't want the liner seeping below this line. I'm going to take a little bit more of my gel liner just to even it up because I find it so much easier to do, and I am just elongating it slightly and creating a bit more of a thick wing. Another little tip is I like to wait until my liner dries before I pull my tape off. I just find that it ends up crisper and cleaner because you don't smudge eyeliner anywhere, so you get that really beautiful sharp line. What I'm going to do while I wait for the other side to dry is I'm going to take a little bit of my eye cream. You can use any eye cream that you like. I just like to pop a little bit of it on my finger, and that is how I generally blend out this area. So I'm just using a little bit of that eye cream just to blend where that tape was under the eye, and then I bring it out onto the temple. I like to start with the edges of the tape that's furthest away from the eye first, just to fuse those edges there. And then I like to remove this harsh line from the eyeshadow. Some people like to keep it, but I find it looks a lot more seamless when it's not there. So when there's less product on my finger, there's not much on here anymore, I'm just going to use little patting motions just to really soften that edge. Again, make sure your eyeliner is dry before you do this because you don't want to smudge that tail that we've created. But I'm just sort of slowly but surely just taking my finger, small little pressing motions, and you can see that's so much more blended now. So much cleaner, and it looks like you're just a pro at eyeshadow. Now that I have cleaned both of those up, they're looking nice and even, nice and quickly without any issues. I'm going to go in with some mascara and some falsies, and I will be right back. To finish up that lower lash line, I am taking the smaller tapered brush and the shadow here that we put in our crease, and I'm just buffing that along the lower lash line all the way to the inner corner. I am then dusting off my brush and taking a little bit more of that light shimmery shade on the inner corner of the eye just to increase that inner corner highlight. You want to finish with mascara and then you are done the eyes. And this is the completed look. I hope this video was informative and was helpful for you guys. Please let me know down below if you liked it, and if you liked a little bit more of a lengthy video but going more in depth and giving you all my tips and tricks. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to see the other portion of the series. If you have something specific in mind that you want to learn about, don't forget to leave me a comment and I'll make sure I make a more in-depth video on my tips and tricks for that area of the face or for that specific look that you want to learn to recreate. As always, have a lovely day, guys. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye!